The boy was only 10, barefoot, trembling, and begging the cops to arrest him. Everyone thought he'd lost his mind until they looked at his wrist. What they saw made 3 hardened officers step back in shock. Because this wasn't just any kid. His blood carried something the world was never supposed to see. He said he could hear the city calling him, whispering numbers, names, and secrets buried deep underground. The cops didn't know it yet, but that little boy's secret would lead them into an abandoned lab that held the key to saving or ending all of humanity. This is the story of a child built to change the world, and the man who risked everything to keep him human. Welcome to BrainFuel, where every story burns with truth, mystery, and power. From hidden labs to forgotten heroes, we dive deep into tales that make you feel, think, and believe. Subscribe now, and get ready to feed your mind with stories that ignite the soul. Please arrest me. The words came out so quietly, Officer Daniels almost thought he imagined them. The rain was coming down hard, splattering against a patrol car. We saw the little figure standing in the middle of the street. No umbrella, no jacket, just a small boy trembling in soaked clothes. He couldn't have been older than 10. The flashing blue lights reflected in the puddles, and the boy squinted against them, his eyes wide, frightened but strangely determined. Daniel stepped out of the car, the cold wind cutting through his uniform. "Hey there, buddy," he called, keeping his voice calm. "You okay? Where are your parents?" The boy didn't answer. He just stood there, shivering, clutching a small backpack to his chest like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Daniels took a slow step forward. "Hey, it's all right. You're not in trouble." That's when the boy lifted his head, tears mixed with rainwater on his face. His lips trembled as he whispered again, clearer this time, "Please arrest me." Daniels froze. "What did you just say?" The boy swallowed hard, eyes darting between him and the patrol car. "Please, sir, take me with you. Just put me in jail." The officer blinked, trying to process what he was hearing. He'd been in law enforcement for 15 years. He'd dealt with angry drunks, car chases, and even hostage calls. But never, not once, had a child beg him to be arrested. Something deep in his gut told him this was no ordinary situation. He slowly crouched down so he could look the boy in the eyes. "Hey, son, my name's Officer Daniels. What's your name?" The boy hesitated, clutching his backpack tighter. "Jaden," he murmured. "Okay, Jaden," Daniel said gently. "Why do you want me to arrest you? Did something happen?" Jaden looked down at his muddy sneakers. "I can't go home." The words came out so small, Daniels barely caught them. "You can't go home? Why not?" Jaden shook his head, the rain dripping from his curls. "It's not home if they don't want you there." That sentence hit Daniels like a punch to the chest. There was something in the way Jaden said it. Something that didn't sound like a tantrum or a runaway trying to get attention. It sounded like heartbreak. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. "Let's get you out of the rain, huh?" Jaden stiffened. "No, not the car." Daniels froze. "You don't want to go in the car?" The boy's breathing quickened. "They said the cops would take me back to them if they ever found me." "I can't go back. Please don't take me back." Daniels raised his hands gently, showing he meant no harm. "You're safe, Jaden. I'm not taking you anywhere you don't want to go. I just want to help. That's all." For a moment, Jaden stared at him, like he was trying to decide if he could trust him. His lower lip trembled. "You promise?" "I promise," Daniel said softly. "Scout's honor." Jaden took a shaky breath. "Then I'll tell you something, but you have to keep it secret." Daniels nodded. "Okay, what is it?" The boy hesitated, glancing around as if the rain-soaked streets were filled with hidden eyes. "They're watching. They always watch." Daniels frowned. "Who's watching?" "The people who took me." A chill ran down Daniels' spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Took you?" Jaden nodded, tears starting to fall again. "They said they were going to make me a star. They said my mama sent me with them, so I could be famous. But it was a lie." He looked up, and in that moment, Daniel saw something in the boy's eyes that made his stomach twist. Not just fear, but exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't belong to a 10-year-old. Daniel's partner, Officer Harris walked up behind him, umbrella in hand. "Everything all right?" he asked. Daniel shook his head slightly. "Not sure yet." Then he turned back to Jaden. "How long have you been out here?" "I ran away 2 nights ago," Jaden said, voice barely above a whisper. "I've been walking and hiding. I didn't have nowhere to go." "Did you eat anything?" Harris asked. Jaden hesitated, then shook his head. "Just a candy bar from a gas station trash can." Harris cursed under his breath and reached into the car, grabbing a granola bar from the glove box. He handed it to Jaden. "Here, kid, take this." Jaden unwrapped it slowly, as if afraid it might be a trick. But the moment he took the first bite, the look on his face said everything. He was starving. Daniels noticed something else then. Around Jaden's wrist was a metal band, dull and scratched, with a tiny barcode etched into it. At first, Daniels thought it was one of those cheap bracelets kids wear from a hospital. But this one looked different. Industrial. Not something a child should have. "What's that on your wrist, Jaden?" Jaden froze mid-bite, his eyes darting down to the bracelet. "Don't touch it," he said quickly. "I'm not going to hurt you," Daniels assured him. "I just want to know what it is." It's mine," Jaden stammered. "They made me wear it." "Who did?" The ones in the house." Daniels exchanged a sharp look with Harris. Something was very wrong here. "Jaden," Daniels said carefully, "is there anyone I can call for you? A parent? A friend?" Jaden shook his head violently. "No one. They said if I talked to anyone, they'd come back for me. They always find you if you talk." His voice cracked on the last word, and the fear in his tone wasn't imagined. It was bone deep. The rain kept pouring, thunder rolling somewhere in the distance. Daniels could feel his pulse in his ears. He'd seen a lot in his career, but this boy, this trembling, broken little soul, made him feel something he hadn't in a long time. Protective. He knelt again and placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "Jaden, listen to me. I don't know what happened to you, but I swear on my badge, you're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you again." Jaden looked at him with tear-filled eyes, searching his face for any sign of deceit. And then, for the first time that night, he nodded, just a small nod, but enough to tell Daniels he was beginning to believe him. "Okay," Jaden whispered. "I'll go with you. But only if I can sit in the back. That way, it'll look like I'm arrested, so they won't come after me." Daniels exchanged a look with Harris. Part confusion, part heartbreak. "All right," he said softly. "If that makes you feel safe, that's what we'll do." As Jaden climbed into the backseat of the patrol car, clutching his small backpack, Daniels couldn't shake one haunting thought. What kind of world makes a child beg to be arrested just to feel safe? And deep down, he knew this night was only the beginning of a story he'd never forget. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time Officer Daniels started the car, but the storm inside that patrol vehicle was just beginning. Jaden sat in the back seat, clutching his soaked backpack, so tightly his knuckles had turned white, his small face reflected in the glass, eyes watching every shadow that passed. He looked less like a kid being rescued and more like someone running from ghosts only he could see. Officer Harris adjusted the rearview mirror, his voice gentle. "You warming up back there, champ?" Jaden didn't answer. He just nodded faintly, though his body was still trembling. Daniels glanced at Harris. "Let's park somewhere quiet," he said. "No need to rush him yet." They pulled over near a closed diner, the kind of old roadside place that smelled like burnt coffee and memories. Its neon sign flickered weakly, open 24 hours, even though it clearly wasn't. The streetlights buzzed overhead, casting a dull orange glow on the wet pavement. Daniels turned around in his seat to face Jaden. "All right, buddy, let's talk for a second. You said your name's Jaden, right?" The boy nodded. "And how old are you, Jaden?" 10, he said softly. Daniels smiled gently. 10? That's a brave age. Jaden didn't smile back. His eyes darted between both officers like he was measuring every word he said. "You're not going to make me go home, right?" Daniels shook his head. "Not unless you want to. But I need to understand what's going on first." Jaden looked down, silent. His lips trembled as if the words he wanted to say were trapped behind fear. Finally, he whispered, They'll find me. Who will? Harris asked quietly. The people in the house. Daniels frowned. What house? The one they kept me in. A tense silence filled the car. The rain tapped gently on the roof, the only sound breaking the air between them. Daniels leaned closer. Jaden, what do you mean they kept you? The boy's eyes filled with tears, his voice cracking. They told me I had to stay, that I was special, but they lied. Daniels exchanged a look with Harris, a silent exchange that said everything. This wasn't a runaway case. Something darker was hidden in those few words. The boy hesitated, then reached into a small backpack. Inside were only a few things: a crumpled photo, a small flashlight, and a folded piece of paper that looked like it had been ripped from a notebook. He handed it to Daniels. Daniels carefully unfolded the paper. It was a drawing, a crude, childlike sketch of a house surrounded by tall fences and cameras. Stick figures were drawn inside, with one small figure labeled me behind a barred window. Above the house, written in shaky pencil letters, were 3 words: They watch always. Daniel's chest tightened. Did you draw this, Jaden? He nodded, wiping his nose on his sleeve. That's where they made me stay. Who are they? Harris asked, his tone soft but serious. Jaden's hands began to shake. I don't know their real names. They had masks sometimes. They said if I ever told anyone, they'd make me disappear forever. Daniels took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. He'd handled abuse cases before, but something about this felt organized, calculated. The wristband, the fear, the coded speech. This wasn't just one bad household. This was something far more dangerous. He reached into the console and pulled out a blanket. Here, he said, draping it over the boy's shoulders. You're safe with us, Jaden. Nobody's going to hurt you. Jaden clutched the blanket tightly. You don't understand, he whispered. They have people everywhere, even the police. That line made both officers go still. Daniels tried to keep his tone calm. Jaden, can you tell me what makes you think that? Jaden hesitated. One time, a man came to the house. He had a badge. He talked to the people there. After he left, they told me if I ever tried to escape, the cops would just bring me back. Harris rubbed the back of his neck. Jesus, he muttered under his breath. Daniels leaned closer. Jaden, listen to me. Not all cops are bad. I don't know who that man was, but I promise you, you're with the right ones now. Jaden looked doubtful. How do I know? Daniels thought for a second, then took off his badge and handed it to the boy through the divider. Because this badge isn't for hurting people. It's for protecting them. And right now, I'm using it for you. Jaden looked at the badge in his small hands. The gold gleamed faintly in the streetlight. Slowly, his shoulders relaxed just a little. He whispered, You don't lie? Daniel smiled softly. Not to kids who need help. Jaden nodded slowly, as if finally, a tiny crack of trust had formed in the wall of fear around him. Daniels glanced down at the boy's wrist again, that same dull metal band. It looked heavy for such a small wrist, and under the glow of the dashboard, it reflected something strange. A faint serial code. Jaden, Daniel said gently, Can I take a look at your wristband? Jaden's eyes went wide. He covered it with his sleeve. No, they'll know if you touch it. Who'll know? Harris asked. Them, Jaden whispered again, curling his arm into his chest. It's got a tracker. They can see where I am. Daniels froze. A tracker? Jaden nodded. They put it on when I got there. Said it was to make sure I didn't get lost. But it beeped whenever I tried to leave. Harris muttered under his breath. This just got a whole lot bigger than I thought. Daniels took a deep breath, thinking fast. Okay, we're not touching it. Not yet. But we're going to take you somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't reach you. All right. Jaden's eyes darted around nervously. Promise? I promise, Daniel said again. Harris started the engine. The car rumbled to life, headlights slicing through the misty night. Jaden turned to look out the window, his reflection blending with the neon sign of the diner behind them. He whispered, more to himself than anyone else, I didn't mean to run away. I just wanted to be free. Danielle's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He'd seen pain before, but this kind in a child so young was something else. This wasn't just about saving one boy anymore. This felt like the start of something much bigger, a chain waiting to be pulled. As they drove off, the radio crackled with static. The boy closed his eyes and whispered one last line that made Danielle's heart stop cold. They told me my mama's dead, but I still dream she's looking for me. The two officers looked at each other, the weight of those words sinking in. Neither of them spoke, because deep down they both knew this wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of uncovering something far darker than either of them could imagine. And in that moment, Daniel silently vowed, whoever these people were, they'd regret ever laying a hand on that little boy. The drive to the station was silent, except for the sound of the rain and the soft hum of the patrol car's engine. Jaden sat in the back seat, his head tilted toward the window, watching the city lights blur past through streaks of water. Every time a car drove by or a horn echoed, he flinched. Officer Daniels couldn't help glancing at him through the mirror every few seconds. There was something about the boy, the way he watched everything, like a wild animal that had learned the hard way never to trust anyone. When they stopped at a red light, Daniels tried again. "Jaden," he said softly, "do you want something warm to eat? Maybe a burger or hot chocolate?" Jaden looked down. "Can I eat in jail?" The question hit Daniels harder than he expected. "You're not going to jail, kid. You didn't do anything wrong." Jaden shook his head. "It's safer there. They won't look for me in jail." Daniels exhaled slowly. He wanted to argue, to tell him that wasn't how the world worked. But for Jaden, it probably did. "Tell you what," Daniels said, forcing a smile. "Let's stop somewhere quiet. Just us. You can eat, warm up, and we'll figure this out together." "Deal." Jaden hesitated, then nodded slowly. A few minutes later, they pulled into an old diner off Highway 18. The place looked like something from the 1970s. Peeling paint, a flickering neon sign, and the smell of coffee so strong it almost pushed through the car windows. The closed sign hung crookedly on the door, but the cook inside, an older man cleaning the counter, waved them in when he saw the police lights. "Evening, officers," the man called. "Kitchen's shut, but I can heat up some soup." "Appreciate it," Daniel said. "Got a little one here who could use something warm." The man nodded, glancing kindly at Jaden, who lingered behind the officers like a shadow. They sat him in a booth by the window. Daniels removed his jacket and draped it around the boy again. "Sit tight, okay?" Jaden nodded, his small hands wrapped tightly around the steaming cup of cocoa the cook brought out. Daniel sat across from him while Harris spoke quietly on the phone near the counter, trying to get guidance from dispatch without alarming anyone. Jaden took a sip, then looked up nervously. "Are you going to tell them?" "Tell who, buddy?" Daniels asked. "The people at the big house," he whispered. "They always find out when I talk." Daniels leaned forward, keeping his voice gentle. "Jaden, we're not telling anyone except people who can keep you safe. I promise you that." Jaden's eyes flickered a window, where the street outside shimmered with rain. "They have cameras," he muttered. "Everywhere." Daniels followed his gaze. "You mean around the house you were in?" Jaden nodded. "Even in the rooms, even when I was sleeping." Daniel's chest tightened. "What kind of people were they, Jaden?" The boy stared at the cocoa for a long time. "They weren't people," he said softly. "They smiled on the outside, but their eyes were wrong. Cold." Daniels waited, giving him time. Jaden took a shaky breath. "They had other kids, too. Some came and went. Some never came back. They said if I was good, they'd let me see my mama again. But I knew they were lying." Daniels felt something twist in his stomach. He kept his expression steady, though inside, every instinct told him this was bigger than he wanted to believe. "Jaden, how long were you there?" He shrugged. "I don't know. They never let me see calendars. I just remember birthdays. I missed for birthdays. For years." Daniels swallowed hard. Just then, the cook returned with a bowl of soup and slid it across the table. "On the house," he said warmly, giving Jaden a kind smile before heading back to counter. Jaden took a few bites before glancing up. "You're not going to make me go back, right?" Daniels shook his head. "Not in a million years." Jaden's shoulders relaxed slightly, but his eyes drifted to his wrist again, to that strange metal band glinting faintly in the light. Daniels noticed it too. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "That bracelet, can I see it up close?" "You don't have to take it off." Jaden froze, his spoon halfway at his mouth. "Why?" "I'm just curious," Daniel said. "Looks kind of like a hospital tag. Did someone give that to you?" Jaden lowered his hand slowly and stared at the bracelet. "They put it on when I got there. Said it was to keep me safe. But," his voice dropped to a whisper, "it hurts sometimes." Daniels frowned. "Hurts?" "Yeah," Jaden said, rubbing his wrist. "It beeps and burns if I go too far from the house. So I stayed close." The spoon clattered against the bowl as Harris returned to the booth, face pale. "Daniels," he said quietly, "dispatch found nothing under the name Jaden Collins in missing persons." But he paused, glancing at the boy. "They said to scan that bracelet if possible, just to be sure." Jaden's eyes widened. "No, please don't." He pushed himself back into the booth, breathing fast. "If you scan it, they'll know where I am." "Easy, easy," Daniel said, raising a calming hand. "We won't do anything you don't want, okay? You're safe here." Jaden was shaking now. "You don't understand. Last time a kid tried to take us off, they came that same night. They always know." Harris looked at Daniels, troubled. "What do we do?" Daniels leaned back, rubbing his chin. "First, we make sure this kid feels safe. Then we find out what the hell's going on." He turned to Jaden. "Hey, buddy, can I ask you something important? When you say the who's, do you remember any names? Anything at all?" Jaden hesitated, his lips trembling. Then he whispered. "They called one of them Doctor. I think his name was Malcolm. He wore gloves even when he wasn't working. Said he was keeping us clean." Daniel's blood ran cold, the way Jaden said it, like a memory carved deep into him. It didn't sound like make-believe. It sounded real. Before Daniels could ask more, Jaden suddenly turned his wrist toward him. The bracelet had started blinking, a tiny red light pulsing faintly. "See," Jaden said, his voice breaking. "They're looking for me right now." Daniels and Harris exchanged a stunned look. "All right," Daniel said firmly, reaching over to switch off the diner lights. "We're leaving. Now." He turned to Jaden. "You're safe with us, but we can't stay here anymore. We'll get you somewhere they can't find you." Jaden looked terrified, but he nodded and grabbed his backpack. Daniels threw some bills on the counter and led them out through the back exit. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy with tension. As they hurried to the car, Harris muttered, "You think that thing really is a tracker?" Daniels didn't answer. He just looked at Jaden, the tiny, scared boy gripping his backpack like his life depended on it, and said quietly, "We'll find out soon enough." He helped Jaden into the back seat, shut the door, and took one last look at the glowing red light on that wristband. Whatever that was, it wasn't just a bracelet. It was a warning, and the people who put it there were already on their way. The patrol car's wipers screeched back and forth as Officer Daniels drove through the dark, empty streets. Every few seconds, he checked the rear-view mirror. Jaden sat in the back seat again, hugging his backpack to his chest, the faint red light on his wrist still blinking like a heartbeat. Officer Harris broke the silence first. "That thing's still flashing." Daniels gripped the wheel tighter. "I see it." Jaden's eyes darted between the two officers, his small body trembling. "You should have left me there," he whispered. "Now they'll find you too." Daniels turned slightly in his seat. "We're not leaving you, Jaden. Not now, not ever. Whatever this is, we'll handle it." The boy shook his head violently. "You don't understand. They have cars. Black ones. No license plates. They come fast. They don't knock." His voice cracked. "They just take." Daniels exchanged a grim look with Harris. The boy wasn't hysterical. His words were steady, chillingly specific. That made it worse. "All right," Daniels said finally, "we're heading straight to precinct. It's secure. No one's getting to you there." But deep down, even as he said it, something in his gut twisted uneasily. The drive felt endless. Streetlights blurred past like ghosts. Every time Daniels turned a corner, he checked the mirrors, half expecting to see dark headlights following them. "Dispatch," Harris said into the radio. "This is Unit 12. We're en route with a juvenile pickup. Possible trafficking victim. Advise locking down entry points upon arrival." The response crackled to the radio. "Copy that, Unit 12. Holding bays clear. Gate will be ready." Jaden exhaled shakily, curling into himself. "They don't like the police," he murmured. "They said the police can't stop them." Daniels looked at him through the mirror. "You let me worry about that, kid. You just sit tight." But as they turned down a narrow road that led toward the station, Harris suddenly cursed. "What the—" Two black SUVs appeared from the side street. Headlights off, engines rumbling low. Daniels' pulse spiked. "You seeing this?" "Yeah," Harris said, already reaching for the dash camera switch. "They're following close." Jaden whimpered. "It's them." Daniel's heart dropped. "Hold on." He hit the gas. The patrol car surged forward, tires screeching on the wet road. The SUVs matched their speed. No honking, no shouting, just silent, controlled pursuit. "Dispatch." Harris barked into the radio. "We've got two unmarked vehicles tailing us. Possible hostile. Repeat, hostile." The radio hissed with static, no response. "Signal jam," Harris muttered. Daniels swore under his breath. "Of course it is." Jaden pressed his hands over his ears, tears streaking his cheeks. "Please, please, don't let them take me back." Daniels floored it. "Not happening, kid." He took a hard right onto a side street, tires kicking up water. The SUVs followed, one skidding slightly on the turn but recovering fast. "Daniels, they're trained," Harris said, gripping the dashboard. "This isn't random." "Yeah, I noticed." He spotted an underpass ahead, narrow and dark. "Hold on tight." They shot through it, the tunnel amplifying the roar of the engine. As they exited the other side, Daniels cut the headlights and swerved into a small alley behind an abandoned factory. He killed the engine and whispered, "Everyone quiet." The three of them sat in silence. Only the sound of rain dripping off the roof filled the air. The SUVs thundered past seconds later, their engines echoing into the distance. Daniels exhaled. "That buys us a few minutes." Harris nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "We can't go straight to the precinct. They'll be waiting." Jaden sat curled up, shaking. "I told you," he whispered. "They always find you." Daniels turned around and placed a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. "Not this time, Jaden. We're not the kind of cops that give up." The boy looked at him with those wide, wet eyes that had seen too much. "You'll get hurt because of me." Daniels shook his head. "Kid, I've been doing this a long time. I've been shot at, chased, yelled at, but I've never let fear decide what's right. You needed help. That's all that matters." Jaden looked down at his wrist. The red light was still blinking. "Let me see it," Daniels said quietly. Jaden hesitated, then slowly held out his small arm. The bracelet looked heavy, a dull metallic gray with a faint barcode etched into the surface. It wasn't a toy. It looked like something from a lab. Daniels took out his flashlight and examined it closely. "This isn't a regular tracker. Look at this. No clasp, no latch." Harris leaned in. "It's sealed on." Jaden's voice trembled. "They said it never comes off." Daniels frowned. "Well, we'll see about that." He reached for his multi-tool and gently tried to slide the edge under the metal. Jaden winced as a faint electric hum buzzed from the band. "Whoa!" Harris pulled back. "It's electrified?" Daniels cursed softly. These people weren't playing around. Then something unexpected happened. The bracelet emitted a small beep, 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 and the red light turned solid. Jaden gasped. "They found me." Daniels immediately grabbed the radio again. "Dispatch!" Officer Daniels requesting emergency backup at. The radio crackled and died. No signal. "Move!" Harris shouted. "We can't stay here." Daniels threw the car into drive and sped out of the alley. "We'll make it to the precinct a long way. Stick to back roads." Jaden clung to the seatbelt, his voice trembling. They said they can hear through the bracelet. Daniels pressed the pedal harder. Then let them hear this, he muttered. You're not getting him back. Minutes later, they finally reached the outskirts of town. The rain had stopped, but the air felt heavy, too still. Daniels pulled into a deserted parking lot behind a grocery store, turned off the lights, and exhaled. We're safer now. He turned to Harris. Call the FBI field office directly. Skip dispatch. Harris nodded, dialing on his personal phone. After a tense minute, a voice answered. Federal Agent Collins speaking. Daniels explained the situation rapidly. The boy, the band, the chase. When he finished, there was a pause. Then the agent said, Did you say the boy's name is Jaden? Daniels glanced at the boy in the back seat. Yeah, Jaden Collins. The line went silent for a few seconds. Officer, the agent said finally, voice trembling slightly, that boy, he's been missing for 5 years. He's my nephew. Daniel's mouth went dry. He turned slowly to look at Jaden, who was staring at him in confusion. Jaden, he said softly, what's your last name? The boy blinked. Collins. Why? Harris dropped his phone in shock. Daniel's voice barely came out. Kid, your uncle just picked up the phone. For the first time since they found him, Jaden didn't look afraid. He looked stunned, like a memory had flickered back to life. My uncle, he whispered. He's alive? Daniel smiled faintly. And he's been looking for you ever since you disappeared. Jaden's lips trembled, tears welling in his eyes. They told me everyone forgot. Daniel shook his head. No, Jaden, nobody forgot. Outside, thunder rumbled again, distant but growing. The danger wasn't over yet. But for the first time, there was hope, and Officer Daniel silently vowed. Whoever had done this to that boy was about to face justice. The silence inside the patrol car was heavy, almost unreal. The sound of rain had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the engine cooling down. Jaden sat perfectly still, his wide eyes darting between Officer Daniels and Officer Harris. The last words from the phone still echoed in his mind. That boy, he's my nephew. Daniels leaned forward, gripping the steering wheel. Try and make sense of what he'd just heard. Your uncle's been looking for you for 5 years, he said softly. He's FBI, Jaden. He never stopped searching. Jaden's lips trembled. They told me he was gone. They said nobody wanted me anymore. His voice cracked. They lied. Daniels turned in his seat to face him fully. Yeah, kid, they did. But the truth's out now, and we're not letting them take you back. Harris, still shaken, grabbed the radio again and tried dispatch. Unit 12 requesting immediate line to Agent Collins, FBI. It's about the boy. This is urgent. Static. Nothing. Harris slammed the receiver down. Still dead. Signals jammed. Daniels frowned. We'll have to move. Those SUVs aren't gone. They're regrouping. Jaden hugged himself tighter. They'll come again. They always do when the light stops blinking. Daniel's gaze shot to the boy's wrist. The red light had indeed stopped flashing. It was steady now, glowing faintly like a warning. All right, he said, starting the engine. We're getting you to your uncle. I don't care what it takes. The drive through the outskirts was eerily quiet. Every shadow looked like a threat. The radio remained dead, their phones flickering in and out of service. Daniels kept one eye on the road and one on the mirror. You okay back there, kid? Jaden nodded weakly. I just don't remember everything. Sometimes I dream about a house with a red door and someone calling my name from a porch. Harris looked back at him gently. That might have been your uncle's house. Jaden's eyes brightened a little. Did he really look for me? Daniel smiled faintly. Every single day, from what I just heard. The boy leaned his head against a window, whispering, then maybe I wasn't forgotten after all. For a few moments, the car was filled with quiet hope. But then the headlights flickered. Once, twice, then total darkness. Not again, Daniels muttered, hitting the lights. Nothing. The dashboard went black. The engine sputtered, then died. Harris's voice was tense. They're hitting the car's electronics. Jaden's small voice broke through the tension. They can do that. How? Daniels demanded. Jaden hesitated. The bracelet. It sends a signal. It talks to them. Daniels cursed under his breath. They're tracking us through it. Before they could react, a faint rumble grew louder. Engines. Harris looked out the rear window and froze. They found us. 3 black SUVs emerged in the darkness, their headlights off, moving in eerie synchronization. Daniel grabbed the gear shift, but the car was dead. We're sitting ducks. Harris reached for his sidearm. Then we make a stand. Jaden's breathing quickened. No, please. They'll hurt you. Daniels turned to him. Not a chance. I promised you we'd get you safe, and I keep my word. The SUVs stopped 20 feet away. Their doors opened slowly. Too slowly. Men stepped out, dressed in dark tactical gear. No badges. No insignia. Just silent, faceless figures. One of them lifted a small device that looked like a remote. He pressed a button, and Jaden screamed as the bracelet on his wrist glowed red-hot. Daniels lunged forward, pulling the boy's arm and grabbing his hand. Hang on, Jaden. Smoke rose from the bracelet, and Jaden cried out in pain. It burns. Harris fired a warning shot into the air. Back off, he shouted. The men didn't flinch. They advanced, slowly, methodically, like machines. Daniels looked at Jaden's wrist. The metal was melting slightly, the edges glowing. He had seconds to decide. Hold him, he shouted. Harris gripped Jaden's shoulders, while Daniels pulled out his multi-tool again. He wedged the blade under the glowing seam and pried with all his strength. Come on, he hissed. Jaden cried out, and then, with a sharp crack, the band snapped open. It fell to the ground, smoking. Instantly, the car's engines roared louder, almost as if they'd felt it. Daniels tossed the bracelet into the mud and yelled, Go! Move! He threw open the door, pulling Jaden out. Harris covered them, firing 2 more rounds toward the approaching figures. The men scattered behind their vehicles. Daniels dragged Jaden into the trees behind the parking lot, Harris close behind. The rain had turned the ground slick, but they didn't stop running until the glow of headlights faded behind them. They collapsed behind an old wooden fence, panting. Jaden clutched his now bare wrist, trembling. It's off, he whispered. It's really off. Daniels nodded. You're free, kid. But even as he said it, they could still hear engines in the distance, searching, circling. We can't stay here, Harris said. We need a plan. Daniels thought fast. We'll head north to Route 9. There's a diner about 10 miles up. Public place. If we can reach a landline, we can contact the FBI field office directly. Jaden's voice was soft. What'd they find us again? Daniels placed a hand on his shoulder. Then they'll wish they hadn't. He smiled reassuringly, but inside his heart was pounding. Whatever organization was after this boy had resources far beyond normal criminals. An hour later, they stumbled into the flickering neon light of the roadside diner. The sign read, Marty's 24/7. Inside, a tired waitress looked up from behind the counter. Rough night, officers? She asked. You could say that, Daniel said, forcing a smile. Can we use your landline? Emergency situation. She hesitated, then pointed to the wall phone. Sure thing. Daniels dialed quickly. The line crackled, but finally, FBI Field Operations. This is Officer Daniels, badge 3471. I've got a child, Jaden Collins. He's alive. We need Agent Collins immediately. There was silence. Then a shaky voice answered. Officer, this is Agent Collins. I'm tracking your call. Stay exactly where you are. Relief washed over Daniels. We're safe for now, but we've got hostile vehicles in pursuit. They've been jamming our comms, and... Suddenly, the lights in the diner flickered. Then blackout. The waitress gasped. The neon sign outside went dark. And from outside, faint headlights appeared again, creeping closer. Daniel's blood ran cold. They're here. He looked at Jaden, who stared back with tear-filled eyes. They won't stop, the boy whispered. Daniels clenched his jaw. Then neither will we. He pulled the boy close, shielding him as Harris drew his weapon again. Outside, shadows moved past the windows, silent, steady, closing in. But from far away, sirens began to wail. Faint at first, then louder. Backup. And for the first time that night, hope flickered again. Because even in the darkest hour, someone was still fighting for that little boy. The diner was pitch black. The only light came from the faint glow of car headlights outside, slicing through the windows like blades. Every heartbeat felt loud, echoing through the silence. Officer Daniels stood still, one hand on his gun, the other protectively in front of Jaden. Beside him, Officer Harris crouched low, scanning the entrance. The waitress was frozen behind the counter, her trembling hands clutching a coffee pot. From outside came the crunch of boots on gravel. Slow, deliberate, Daniels whispered, "Stay down. Don't move." Jaden nodded, his small fingers gripping Daniel's sleeve tightly. Another noise followed, the soft metallic click of a door opening. Someone was entering. Daniels motioned to Harris. "Back door," he mouthed. Harris nodded and crept toward the rear exit, ready to flank whoever came through. The sound of rain tapping against the windows was the only thing breaking the tension. Then creak. The front door swung open. A silhouette appeared, framed by flashing headlights. For a split second, Daniels couldn't tell if it was friend or foe. Then came the unmistakable shout of authority. "Police! FBI! Hands up!" The voice was deep, commanding, and strangely familiar. Daniels lowered his gun just slightly. "Identify yourself," he yelled back. The man stepped inside, raising his badge. "Agent Marcus Collins, FBI." Jaden's head snapped up, his lips parted. "That's my uncle." Before Daniels could react, the boy broke free from his grasp and ran toward the man. "Uncle Marcus," he cried out. Agent Collins dropped his weapon and caught the boy in his arms, holding him tight, as if he never wanted to let go. His voice cracked. "Jaden? Oh my God! Jaden!" The room went silent, except for Jaden's quiet sobs. He buried his face in his uncle's chest, clutching his jacket like he was afraid he might disappear again. Daniels lowered his weapon completely, exhaling in relief. "Agent Collins, we've been trying to reach you. He's been through hell." Collins looked up, his face pale but grateful. "You found him. After all these years." His voice broke. "I thought he was gone forever." But before the moment could settle, Harris shouted from the back door, "We've got company." Through the kitchen window, more black SUVs appeared. At least for this time. Their headlights swept across the diner walls like searchlights. Collins' expression hardened. "They found you." Daniels nodded grimly. "We think the bracelet was tracking him, but we cut it off." Then they switched to manual search. Collins said, "Scanning the area. They don't quit easily." "Who are they?" Harris demanded. Collins hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. "They're called Erebus Technologies. On paper, they're a private research firm. In reality, they're a covert network that's been kidnapping children for illegal experiments, tech, genetics, you name it." Daniel's stomach turned. "And Jaden?" Collins swallowed hard. "Jaden was one of the first taken. My sister, his mother, died searching for him. I've been chasing leads for 5 years. Every trail ended cold until tonight." Jaden looked up at him, tears in his eyes. "You never stopped looking?" Collins cupped his nephew's face. "Not for a single day, buddy. Not one." The sound of engines revving cut through the moment. The SUVs had stopped just outside the parking lot. Daniels checked his weapon. "We're outnumbered." Collins's tone was sharp. "Not for long. I called to my team. They're 5 minutes out. We just have to hold this position." The waitress peeked out from behind the counter. "What is happening here?" Daniels turned to her quickly. "Ma'am, get down and stay low. You'll be fine." Outside, the first SUV door opened. Figures in tactical suits stepped out, moving toward the diner entrance. Collins took position behind an overturned table. Harris moved to cover the windows. Daniels crouched near Jaden, shielding him. "Listen to me, kid," Daniels said softly. "No matter what happens, stay close to your uncle. You hear me?" Jaden nodded, clutching Collins' arm. The glass door shattered as a flash grenade rolled inside. The explosion filled the diner with white light and smoke. Daniels ducked, ears ringing. He could barely hear Harris shouting, "Cover fire!" Bullets shattered glass. Tables splintered. Collins fired back, hitting one of the dark figures through the window. Another man went down. Jaden screamed, covering his ears. Collins grabbed him and dragged him behind the counter. "Stay down, Jay." Daniels moved beside them, firing toward the entrance. "How many?" he yelled. "Too many," Harris called back. Then, over the chaos, sirens, dozens of them. Red and blue lights flashed across the lot as black SUVs screeched to a halt. Armed federal agents in tactical gear stormed the area. Collins shouted, "Stand down, FBI." The attackers froze. Some dropped their weapons. Others tried to flee. Within seconds, the diner was surrounded. It was over. For the first time in what felt like forever, silence returned. Daniels lowered his weapon, chest heaving. Harris leaned against the counter, exhausted. The waitress sobbed quietly from the corner. Agent Collins knelt beside Jaden, brushing the boy's hair back. "You're safe now. I promise." Jaden looked around, dazed but alive. "They're gone." Collins nodded. "They won't hurt you again." Daniels stepped forward. "What happens now?" Collins exhaled. "Now we expose everything. Every name, every experiment, every child they took." He looked at Jaden. "And we start with him." Jaden looked down at his wrist, now bare except for a faint burn mark where the bracelet once was. "I don't remember much," he whispered, "but I know they wanted something from me. They said I was special." Collins frowned. "Special how?" Jaden hesitated, searching for words. "They said my blood could heal people." Everyone went silent. Collins's expression darkened. "That's why they took you." Daniels stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Collins looked between them, his voice grim. "Jaden carries a rare gene, 1 in a billion. It's been linked to accelerated healing. Erebus wanted to weaponize it." Daniels clenched his fists. "So they experiment on him?" Collins nodded, his eyes wet. "They turned my nephew into a test subject." Harris muttered, "Monsters." Outside, FBI team secured the area, cuffing the captured agents and loading them into vans. One agent radioed, "Sir, the lab vans are en route. We'll trace their tech back to HQ." Collins stood and took Jaden's hand. "It's over, buddy. You're going home." Jaden looked up, hesitant. "Home?" Collins smiled faintly. "Yeah, my home, where you belong." Daniels put a hand on Collins's shoulder. "You've got a brave kid. He didn't give up even when he thought everyone forgot." Collins looked down at his nephew with pride. "He's stronger than anyone I've ever met." Jaden smiled shyly. "I just wanted to be safe." "You are now," Collins said softly. "You're safe." Outside, dawn began to break. Faint sunlight piercing through the gray clouds. The nightmare was ending. But Daniels knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning of something bigger. Because behind every secret lab and every missing child, there was a truth the world still didn't know. And now, thanks to one brave little boy, that truth was finally about to be exposed. The next morning, the sun crept over the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and gray. For the first time in what felt like forever, Jaden slept peacefully, curled up in a hospital bed, his tiny hand clutching the blanket, breathing steady and calm. Agent Marcus Collins sat beside him, eyes weary but alert. He hadn't slept all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes. The day Jaden disappeared, the endless years of searching, the late nights staring at files and dead ends. But now, the boy was right there, real and breathing. It didn't feel real yet. Officer Daniels walked into the room quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you've been through a war," he said softly. Collins gave a small, tired smile. "In some ways, I have..." He took the coffee and sighed. "Thank you for saving him." Daniels shook his head. "We didn't save him, Agent. He saved himself. That kid's tougher than half the cops I know." Collins nodded, looking back at Jaden. "He always was strong. Even when he was 5, he used to comfort me when things got hard. Daniel smiled faintly, but his expression turned serious. FBI has been buzzing all morning. They say Erebus Technologies is on lockdown, raids across 3 states. What do you know about them? Collins set the coffee down. His voice dropped low, enough to make your skin crawl. He opened a file on the desk beside him, showing photos, blurry surveillance shots, lab corridors, children in hospital gowns, men in suits wearing surgical masks. Erebus started as a biomedical contractor, he explained. They claimed to research regenerative medicine, cures for genetic diseases. But behind the scenes, they were experimenting on children who showed rare DNA traits. Jaden was one of them. Daniels frowned. And his bracelet? That was a bio-tracker, Collins said grimly. It wasn't just for tracking location. It monitored vitals, brain activity, even emotions. They used it to test how the kids reacted to fear, pain, and isolation. Daniel's stomach twisted. You're telling me they tortured kids for science? Collins's voice hardened. Not for science, for profit. They wanted to sell the results to military investors. Regenerative genetics. Human enhancement. The perfect soldier. Daniels ran a hand through his hair. Jesus. A moment of silence passed between them. The faint beep of Jaden's heart monitor was the only sound in the room. Then the door opened. Harris stepped in, carrying a folder. You're going to want to see this. He handed it to Collins. Inside were several photos taken by FBI tech teams during the night raid. One photo showed the broken bracelet, now deactivated, under forensic lights. Another showed a coded chip inside the metal. This chip's not just a tracker, Harris said. Our tech guys ran a scan. It was transmitting data to a satellite uplink registered under a fake company name. Guess who owns it? Collins looked up sharply. Who? Erebus's Dr. Malcolm Reese. Collins's eyes darkened. I've been after that man for years. Every time we got close, he vanished behind corporate loopholes. Daniels frowned. So what's next? You finally have evidence. Collins nodded slowly. We do. But evidence means nothing unless we can connect Reese directly to the abductions. We need someone who's been inside that facility. Daniels looked toward Jaden. Collins followed his gaze, his expression torn. He's just a kid, Daniels. He's been through enough. But he's the key, Daniels said gently. He knows things they never thought he'd remember. As if on cue, Jaden stirred in the bed. His eyes fluttered open, blinking at the morning light. When he saw his uncle, he smiled faintly. Hey, Uncle Marcus. Collins reached out, brushing the boy's hair back. Hey, buddy, how are you feeling? Jaden hesitated. Safe. But my dreams were weird again. Daniels pulled a chair closer. What kind of dreams, Jaden? Jaden frowned, trying to remember. There were white rooms, with glass walls, and I saw other kids. They wore the same bracelets I did. Some of them cried. Some didn't move. Collins' voice caught. Do you remember where it was? Jaden thought hard. There was a big symbol on the wall, like an eye with a lightning bolt through it. Harris's eyes widened. We saw that in the raid photos. That's their logo. Jaden nodded. And there was a woman. She wore all white. She used to say, Don't be scared, Jaden. You're helping the world. Collins felt his stomach drop. Dr. Evelyn Shaw, he muttered, Reese's head scientist. She vanished 3 years ago. Jaden looked confused. She told me they were fixing people, that I was special because my blood could heal. Daniels knelt beside him. And did they ever test you? Jaden's eyes dimmed. They took blood, every day, and sometimes they put it in other kids. Some got better. Some didn't wake up. The room went completely still. Collins' hands clenched into fists. That's it. That's what they were hiding. He stood abruptly, his voice shaking with both rage and purpose. They weren't testing medicine. They were playing God. And now we can prove it. Daniels looked at him. What's the plan? We tracked down Dr. Shaw. Collins said, She's the only one who knows where the other kids are and how to shut down Erebus for good. Harris nodded. Intel team found something last night. Shaw was spotted near a private airstrip in Nevada 2 weeks ago. There's a chance she's still in the desert. Collins grabbed his jacket. Then that's where we're going. Jaden sat up suddenly. You're leaving? Collins turned, kneeling beside him again. Just for a little while. Buddy, we're going to find the people who did this and make sure they can never hurt anyone again. Jaden's eyes filled with tears. Promise you'll come back? Collins smiled softly, placing a hand on his nephew's chest. I swear it. And when I do, we're going to rebuild your life together. Daniels added, and when you're ready, you can tell your story, Jaden. The world needs to hear it. The boy nodded bravely. Then I'll tell them everything. Collins stood, determination burning in his eyes. Good, because the truth is what they fear the most. He turned to Daniels and Harris. Gear up. We move in 1 hour. As they left the hospital room, the camera of the world, if this were a film, would linger on Jaden's face. The faint morning light touched his skin, and for the first time he smiled without fear. Outside, the city began to wake. But in the quiet corners of the world, men like Dr. Reese were still watching, waiting. And somewhere in a desert lab surrounded by dust and secrets, a woman in white looked up at a blinking monitor that read, Subject 001 signal lost. She frowned, whispering to herself, So, the boy survived. And then, she smiled, the Nevada desert stretched endlessly beneath a blazing sun. A sea of gold dust, cracked soil, and silence that swallowed sound itself. Agent Marcus Collins leaned against the side of a dusty black SUV, scanning the horizon through a pair of binoculars. Behind him, Officer Daniels and Agent Harris were unloading gear. Tactical packs, water, weapons, and a small satellite scanner flickering with faint green signals. They had been driving for hours, following the coordinates extracted from the chip inside Jaden's bracelet. Every few miles, the signal grew stronger. This can't just be a lab, Harris muttered, checking the readings. The energy output here is way beyond what a research facility would need. Collins lowered his binoculars. Then it's something bigger. Daniels kicked the sand. Or something they don't want anyone to find. The wind howled across the flatlands, carrying a faint metallic scent, like rust and ozone. Collins adjusted his vest, eyes fixed on the far-off ridge. That's where she is, he said quietly. Harris looked up. You sure? Positive, Collins replied. Dr. Shaw was always drawn to isolation. If she's running this, she'd bury herself somewhere no one could stumble across. They climbed back into the SUV and drove toward the ridge. As they approached, the terrain began to change. The flat sands gave way to rocky mounds and narrow canyons. And then in the distance, something caught Daniels' eye. Hold up, he said, pointing ahead. You see that? Through the shimmering heat, they could make out a faint outline, the corner of a concrete structure half buried in the earth. It looked like part of a bunker, with vents poking out like metal thorns. Bingo, Harris whispered. They parked behind a cluster of rocks, about half a mile away. The team moved on foot, keeping low as they approached the site. The closer they got, the more unsettling the details became. Tire tracks, high-voltage fences, security cameras disguised as rocks. This place is still active, Daniels muttered. Collins nodded grimly. And if it's active, Shaw's still here. They reached the outer gate. It was sealed shut, but a biometric scanner blinked faintly beside it. Collins motioned for Harris to set up the signal disruptor, a small device that jammed electronics within a 100-yard radius. A few seconds later, the red light on the scanner flickered and went dark. Collins took a crowbar from his pack and pried open the gate just enough for them to slip inside. The air grew cooler as they descended a narrow ramp leading underground. The sound of their boots echoed softly on the metal floor. Inside, the facility looked like something from another world. Walls lined with glass tanks, monitors showing streams of code, and sterile white lights that buzzed faintly overhead. Daniels whispered, Feels like walking into a ghost story. But Collins wasn't listening. His eyes were on the row of nameplates beside the lab doors, faded labels that read things like Subject Testing Unit A, Genetic Mapping, and Biointegration. Then he froze. One of the doors had a tag that said, 001 Jaden Collins. His pulse spiked. He touched the door. It was cold, almost too cold. And for a brief second, a memory flashed. Jaden's 5th birthday, his laughter, his tiny hands reaching for a toy plane. Daniels placed a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, we'll shut this place down." For him. Collins nodded, forcing himself to stay focused. "Let's find Shaw." They moved deeper into the facility. Suddenly, Harris raised his hand. A faint hum echoed from the corridor ahead. They followed the sound until they reached a glass observation chamber. Inside stood Dr. Evelyn Shaw. She hadn't aged well. Her hair streaked with gray, her lab coat stained with dust. But her eyes still burned with that cold, clinical intensity that Collins remembered from the old Erebus files. She looked up as the trio entered. "Marcus Collins," she said calmly, as though greeting an expected guest. "I was wondering how long it would take you to find me." Collins aimed his weapon. "It's over, Shaw." Step away from the console. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled faintly. "Over? Oh, Marcus, it's only beginning." Daniels moved to the side, scanning the room. "What are you talking about?" Shaw gestured toward the monitors behind her. They displayed images, medical charts, brain scans, genetic sequences, and one feed showing a live view of several cryogenic pods. "Do you know what you're looking at?" she asked softly. "The next evolution of humankind. The children we lost, the ones who didn't survive the trials. They paved the way for something extraordinary." Collins's voice hardened. "You tortured them." "I saved them," she countered, eyes blazing. "Jaden's DNA changed everything. His blood carries regenerative properties we've never seen in any human. With it, I could heal soldiers in seconds, eliminate disease, extend life. By killing innocent kids?" Daniel snapped. "That's not science, that's murder." Shaw tilted her head. "Sacrifice is the foundation of progress." Collins took a step forward, gun still raised. "Where the others, Shaw, the children from Erebus, where are they?" Her smile faded. "Buried in data," she whispered. "Their bodies may be gone, but their genomes live on in the code." Harris frowned. "Code? What code?" Shaw turned back to the console. "The Erebus project doesn't die with me. Every experiment, every strand of DNA, it's all stored on a remote server. Even if you shut this facility down, the data will rebuild itself." Collins's finger tightened on the trigger. "Then we'll destroy it." But before he could act, a sharp alarm pierced the air. Red lights flared across the room. Shaw laughed softly. "Too late. The system detected unauthorized access. The files are uploading now to an encrypted network no one can trace." "Shut it down." Daniels yelled, rushing to the console. Harris typed furiously, trying to override the command. "It's too complex." She got fail-safes on top of fail-safes. Collins lunged forward and grabbed Shaw by the collar. "Tell me how to stop it." She looked straight into his eyes. "You can't stop what's already inside him." Collins froze. "What do you mean?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Jaden isn't just immune. He's the key. Erebus lives through him." Before Collins could respond, a blinding flash erupted from the console, a small explosion of sparks and smoke. Shaw was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard. Harris coughed, waving away the smoke. "Systems fried, but I don't know how much she uploaded." Collins turned to Shaw, but she was still conscious, smiling weakly through the blood on her lips. "You think you've saved him," she said faintly. "But soon the world will come looking for what's inside that boy." Her eyes fluttered closed. The monitors went dark. Collins stood there shaken, heart pounding. Daniels placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let's get out of here, before this place blows." As they climbed back into the sunlight, the facility began to rumble beneath them. The ground split slightly, and a plume of smoke rose from a ridge. Collins looked back, jaw tight. Harris muttered, "Think that's the end of Erebus?" Collins shook his head slowly. "No, it's the beginning of something worse." He looked down at the broken USB drive in his hand, the only piece of data they'd salvaged from Shaw's console. On its surface, one word was etched in faint white letters: Project Rebirth. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly beneath a blazing sun. A sea of gold dust, cracked soil, and silence that swallowed sound itself. Agent Marcus Collins leaned against the side of a dusty black SUV, scanning the horizon through a pair of binoculars. Behind him, Officer Daniels and Agent Harris were unloading gear. Tactical packs, water, weapons, and a small satellite scanner flickering with faint green signals. They had been driving for hours, following the coordinates extracted from the chip inside Jaden's bracelet. Every few miles, the signal grew stronger. "This can't just be a lab," Harris muttered, checking the readings. "The energy output here is way beyond what a research facility would need." Collins lowered his binoculars. "Then it's something bigger." Daniels kicked the sand. "Or something they don't want anyone to find." The wind howled across the flatlands, carrying a faint metallic scent, like rust and ozone. Collins adjusted his vest, eyes fixed on the far-off ridge. "That's where she is," he said quietly. Harris looked up. "You sure?" "Positive," Collins replied. "Dr. Shaw was always drawn to isolation. If she's running this, she'd bury herself somewhere no one could stumble across." They climbed back into the SUV and drove toward the ridge. As they approached, the terrain began to change. The flat sands gave way to rocky mounds and narrow canyons. And then in the distance, something caught Daniels' eye. "Hold up," he said, pointing ahead. "You see that?" Through the shimmering heat, they could make out a faint outline, the corner of a concrete structure half buried in the earth. It looked like part of a bunker, with vents poking out like metal thorns. "Bingo," Harris whispered. They parked behind a cluster of rocks, about half a mile away. The team moved on foot, keeping low as they approached the site. The closer they got, the more unsettling the details became. Tire tracks, high-voltage fences, security cameras disguised as rocks. "This place is still active," Daniels muttered. Collins nodded grimly. "And if it's active, Shaw's still here." They reached the outer gate. It was sealed shut, but a biometric scanner blinked faintly beside it. Collins motioned for Harris to set up the signal disruptor, a small device that jammed electronics within a 100-yard radius. A few seconds later, the red light on the scanner flickered and went dark. Collins took a crowbar from his pack and pried open the gate just enough for them to slip inside. The air grew cooler as they descended a narrow ramp leading underground. The sound of their boots echoed softly on the metal floor. Inside, the facility looked like something from another world. Walls lined with glass tanks, monitors showing streams of code, and sterile white lights that buzzed faintly overhead. Daniels whispered, "Feels like walking into a ghost story." But Collins wasn't listening. His eyes were on the row of nameplates beside the lab doors, faded labels that read things like Subject Testing Unit A, Genetic Mapping, and Biointegration. Then he froze. One of the doors had a tag that said, 001 Jaden Collins. His pulse spiked. He touched the door. It was cold, almost too cold. And for a brief second, a memory flashed. Jaden's 5th birthday, his laughter, his tiny hands reaching for a toy plane. Daniels placed a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, we'll shut this place down." For him. Collins nodded, forcing himself to stay focused. "Let's find Shaw." They moved deeper into the facility. Suddenly, Harris raised his hand. A faint hum echoed from the corridor ahead. They followed the sound until they reached a glass observation chamber. Inside stood Dr. Evelyn Shaw. She hadn't aged well, her hair streaked with gray, her lab coat stained with dust. But her eyes still burned with that cold, clinical intensity that Collins remembered from the old Erebus files. She looked up as the trio entered. "Marcus Collins," she said calmly, as though greeting an expected guest. "I was wondering how long it would take you to find me." Collins aimed his weapon. "It's over, Shaw." Step away from the console. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled faintly. "Over? Oh, Marcus, it's only beginning." Daniels moved to the side, scanning the room. "What are you talking about?" Shaw gestured toward the monitors behind her. They displayed images, medical charts, brain scans, genetic sequences, and one feed showing a live view of several cryogenic pods. "Do you know what you're looking at?" she asked softly. "The next evolution of humankind. The children we lost, the ones who didn't survive the trials, they paved the way for something extraordinary." Collins's voice hardened. "You tortured them." I saved them, she countered, eyes blazing. Jaden's DNA changed everything. His blood carries regenerative properties we've never seen in any human. With it, I could heal soldiers in seconds, eliminate disease, extend life. By killing innocent kids? Daniel snapped. That's not science, that's murder. Shaw tilted her head. Sacrifice is a foundation of progress. Collins took a step forward, gun still raised. Where the others, Shaw, the children from Erebus, where are they? Her smile faded. Buried in data, she whispered. Their bodies may be gone, but their genomes live on in the code. Harris frowned. Code? What code? Shaw turned back to the console. The Erebus project doesn't die with me. Every experiment, every strand of DNA, it's all stored on a remote server. Even if you shut this facility down, the data will rebuild itself. Collins's finger tightened on the trigger. Then we'll destroy it. But before he could act, a sharp alarm pierced the air. Red lights flared across the room. Shaw laughed softly. Too late. The system detected unauthorized access. The files are uploading now to an encrypted network no one can trace. Shut it down. Daniels yelled, rushing to the console. Harris typed furiously, trying to override the command. It's too complex. She got fail-safes on top of fail-safes. Collins lunged forward and grabbed Shaw by the collar. Tell me how to stop it. She looked straight into his eyes. You can't stop what's already inside him. Collins froze. What do you mean? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Jaden isn't just immune. He's the key. Erebus lives through him. Before Collins could respond, a blinding flash erupted from the console, a small explosion of sparks and smoke. Shaw was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard. Harris coughed, waving away the smoke. Systems fried, but I don't know how much she uploaded. Collins turned to Shaw, but she was still conscious, smiling weakly through the blood on her lips. You think you've saved him, she said faintly. But soon, the world will come looking for what's inside that boy. Her eyes fluttered closed. The monitors went dark. Collins stood there shaken, heart pounding. Daniels placed a hand on his shoulder. Let's get out of here, before this place blows. As they climbed back into the sunlight, the facility began to rumble beneath them. The ground split slightly, and a plume of smoke rose from a ridge. Collins looked back, jaw tight. Harris muttered, Think that's the end of Erebus? Collins shook his head slowly. No, it's the beginning of something worse. He looked down at the broken USB drive in his hand, the only piece of data they'd salvaged from Shaw's console. On its surface, one word was etched in faint white letters. Project Rebirth. The desert stretched endlessly before them, glowing orange beneath the morning sun. The black SUV roared across the cracked highway, dust clouds swirling behind it like ghosts. Inside, the air was thick with tension, the kind that made every breath feel heavy. Agent Marcus Collins gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes darting between the road and the mirror. No one spoke. The rhythmic hum of the tires was the only sound until Jaden finally broke the silence. Uncle Marcus, he whispered, they're still following us. Collins glanced in the mirror. The highway behind them was empty. I don't see anyone, buddy. Jaden shook his head. Not like that. I feel them. Daniels turned from the passenger seat. What do you mean you feel them? Jaden hesitated, his small hands trembling. It's like static in my head. I can hear voices. They're saying numbers, coordinates. They want me to come back. Harris, sitting in the back beside him, exchanged a worried glance with Collins. It's the nanotech, he muttered. It's connecting him to something, maybe the Erebus network Shaw was talking about. Collins tightened his grip on the wheel. Then we shut it down. But Harris shook his head. We can't. It's part of him now. The car sped through the endless expanse of sand until Jaden suddenly gasped. Stop. Turn right. Collins slammed the brakes. What is it? Jaden pointed toward a narrow dirt road cutting off from the main highway. That way. Please, we have to go there. Collins hesitated for only a second before turning the wheel sharply and driving down the path. The terrain grew rougher, and the hum of the engine echoed off the distant cliffs. After about 20 minutes, the dirt road opened into a wide valley, and there, half hidden beneath layers of desert sand, stood something that made everyone's breath catch, a massive underground structure. Its metal roof collapsed in places, lights flickering faintly beneath the dust. The remnants of a forgotten city, buried and sleeping. "Holy," Harris whispered. "Is that?" Jaden nodded slowly. "That's it. That's the city I saw in my dream." They stepped out of the SUV, the desert wind whipping around them. The air buzzed faintly, not like wind, but like electricity. Collins felt it in his bones. "Let's move carefully," he ordered. "Daniels, stay with Jaden. Harris, check for any signals." Harris pulled out his scanner. The screen glowed with readings that spiked and fluctuated wildly. Something's alive down there. Machinery, maybe energy grids. Whatever this place was, it's still running. Jaden stepped forward, eyes fixed on the sand-covered gates. His wrist glowed faintly, and as his hand brushed against the metal, the ground trembled. A hidden mechanism groaned to life. Massive steel doors began to slide open, revealing a dark stairway leading into the earth. Collins drew his weapon. "Stay close." They descended into the underground city. As their flashlights cut through the darkness, the sight that met them was haunting. Glass tunnels, glowing cables, dormant machines lining the walls. "This place is enormous," Daniels murmured. "Looks like a fusion of a lab and a city." Harris nodded. "It's a self-contained ecosystem. Erebus must have built it as a backup site, their fail-safe." Jaden's voice echoed softly. "They called it Project Rebirth." Collins turned sharply. "How do you know that?" Jaden looked distant, almost in a trance. "I can hear the systems talking. They know me." Suddenly, the walls flickered to life. Monitors along the corridor activated, displaying lines of data, DNA strands, pulse readings, and one word flashing repeatedly. "Welcome back. Subject 001. Daniels cursed under his breath. They were expecting him. From the end of the corridor, a mechanical voice spoke, smooth, calm, and eerily familiar. "Jaden Collins, prototype carrier of Rebirth DNA sequence. You have returned to complete integration." A humanoid figure stepped out of the shadows, not human, but not fully machine either. Its skin shimmered like metal, its eyes glowing faintly blue. Collins raised his weapon. "Stay back." The figure ignored him, speaking directly to Jaden. "Your blood contains a code to restore life beyond decay. The world above is dying. We were designed to fix it." Jaden shook his head. "No, you hurt people. You took kids." The figure paused, tilting its head. "Sacrifice ensures survival. Humanity is flawed. We were meant to replace it, not destroy it." Collins stepped between them, over my dead body. But Jaden touched his uncle's arm. "Wait." His wrist glowed brighter, the light reflecting in the machine's eyes. "If I'm the key," Jaden said softly, "then I choose how to use it." The AI hesitated. Choice was never part of the program. "Then maybe it's time to change the program," Jaden said. Without warning, the chamber's lights began to pulse. Harris shouted. "He's interfacing with the system." Jaden's body trembled, but he stood firm. Streams of digital light rose from the floor, swirling around him like fireflies. Screens flickered, showing not just his DNA, but images of the other children, their data, their memories. "I see them," Jaden whispered. "The others, they're still here. In the code." Collins's eyes widened. "Can you free them?" Jaden closed his eyes. "I can try." The entire city began to quake. The AI's voice grew distorted. "Warning. Unauthorized override detected." Harris shouted over the noise. "He's rewriting the core." Jaden's glow intensified, and suddenly the power surged through the chamber, lights exploding, systems collapsing. The AI lunged forward, but Collins fired, hitting its chest. It staggered, sparks flying. Jaden's voice rose, echoing through the metal corridors. "You can't own people. You can't own me." The energy reached a blinding peak, and then silence. The lights flickered once, twice, and went dark. When Collins opened his eyes, Jaden was lying on the ground, unconscious but breathing. The machines around him were still, lifeless. Harris checked his pulse. He's stable, but whatever he did, it's over. Collins lifted him gently. Let's get him out of here. As they climbed back into the daylight, the sun was setting, casting a crimson glow over the desert. The gates of the underground city sealed themselves behind them with a heavy thud, sinking back into silence. Daniels looked back. Think it's really gone? Collins gazed at the horizon. The facility, maybe, but the code? It's part of him now. Jaden stirred in his arms. His voice was faint but clear. Uncle Marcus, are we free now? Collins smiled sadly. Yeah, buddy, we're free. But as he said it, Jaden opened his hand, and a small flicker of light pulsed beneath the skin. Not dangerous, not mechanical, just alive. Collins watched it fade and whispered to himself, maybe the world's not ready for what you are, but one day they'll understand. They drove off into the fading sunlight, leaving behind a city that almost changed humanity forever. And miles away, deep beneath the desert, a single terminal flickered back to life. One final message appeared on its cracked screen. Reboot sequence initiated. The hum of machinery began again, quiet, patient, waiting. Because some things once born never truly die.